Or I got to drive to a conference in Grand Rapids on Wednesday, so I'm not sure out all the way down.
We do run through a lot of money.
Well, turned out well.
Thank you. Thanks. Hopefully. He's doing something positive.
He is.
Thank you. How are you?
Good city council meeting.
You enjoy that on Saturday?
Got your bed up stage.
They have to.
But that doesn't mean we don't.
I told him to go opening night.
Yeah. That's nice to meet you. You're around.
Nope. That's
Right.
like your name.
Interacting with
Bug after bug. But he won't show me. So I get it.
How are you? Good to you. Nice. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Got the sporting stuff.
Good, you?
Sounds about-
I was just gonna say the exact same thing.
Yeah, Jody yesterday, they weren't ready, so let's go.
Yeah, Jeff said we're doing it.
Such fun. They were done. I didn't
Jody, I am good because I'm going.
Yeah. Boy, that's getting quite a, okay.
Exactly, exactly. Anyway, thanks.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Very welcome.
Mr. Councnil, how are you? Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Be careful what you do now.
My wife suggested long.
But you decided it was too early. I saw you at the pier, I was sitting behind you at the pier. Jamie was having her honey. On the porch. Yes, it was nice.
Family oriented.
Sarah taught me how to.
Oh, no, I think it's hard to, but then I found out.
It doesn't hold still, does it? It won't hold still for you. I know for that long.
Yeah.
See how yours.
Oh, I wrote mine. I said, I had some, if I was hesitant, just give it to me.
Oh, I, that I was scared.
It's chilly and freezing.
I generally like it colder, but.
I don't mind it. It's cool, but it's really my hands.
That wasn't big.
Yeah.
I think it's did you get this? I said, no.
Thursday.
Not on the list.
It's Thursday. What's your birthday?
That's why. Can we all get
I gotta do something special. Today's your birthday?
No, it's on Thursday, but I booked the New York in 3 weeks in advance, because it's Thursday sushi night, and on Saturday, it's like, we don't got any real sushi. There's no one else to get.
They keep trying. They do it for like 2 weeks. No consistency.
It's hard.
Yeah.
From the outside, the land.
Tomorrow we're getting to my wall. Another year.
Thank you.
Who's a contractor?
See what the back there.
It's just I run out there, zero what he did that.
I just get a lot of use.
It's good to see you.
It's wore out.
We look like boys, we were.
I got there. It's he's actually one of I just didn't.
This was not a.
Family.
Yeah, it's pretty.
We also let they try to get a very, very.
That's what ended up happening with, 10 and 10.
How did it?
Still ready. Shit.
How you doing? Good, ready?
Yeah, I needed.
Trees are bad. Yeah, oil's bad.
I'm actually very good at it.
Finish all the sidewalks.
I was
Tell me.
I just don't understand.
Our sidewalks.
It's just a messy.
At least you got pumped.
Oh, I know.
Should do that.
You going out to the cabin?
Yeah, leave it Friday afternoon.
We learned that you did. Oh my
Go
God.
get some work done.
Again,
I know.
There's like 6.
huh, anything going on tomorrow? We
Going
doing
up
about?
Saturday, Sarah's going up Saturday, we're all going to take. Gee, one side by side, we got this. Our office.
Good.
You can't make it.
Might as well deal with it,
Oh, yeah.
stuff like that.
Okay, they go away.
But anyway.
Saturday night, we had.
Did you,
So Sunday night, we had fire out on Title Line.
My brother's
Spots, get trucks, things like that. We actually.
30.
Early detection, actually got.
Oh, was that?
Pumpers, arrested and. We got the tanker down there. And enormous amount of water. And I said, you guys know before we had. They really inflates. And they- Quick.
Who lives right there?
You got all the fixed down there, did you get them back up?
Well, yeah, it took a little bit.
Because that's
So we
great.
left. Right, we late come in, so we actually had one that shut down.
And he also
Aerial,
one of few
my other
years.
big
We got it down.
3 other takers. So we should get a rough hose.
Yes, yeah.
Today, setting up, the tables.
That one's here. She's gonna be, like.
I wrote out text.
A lot of water damage. Destroyed that. Don't worry.
Well, I
Some year old. Brought it out.
So I think.
And we all went to that. But we did. So I don't know who walked away. Yeah, today was. It's all over town.
All right, everybody, 7 o'clock, time to call this meeting to order. All rise for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Matt Bugera,
I am here.
John Leo,
Here.
Al Dyke here, Nancy Rondell.
Here.
John Cox. We have a forum.
So that's cool. I guess it's citizens comment time. If there's something that you'd like to discuss that's not on the agenda. Ms. Backus?
Rebecca Backus, 500 West Summit. I have two things actually. I don't think are on the agenda. Number one, the write-in, the absentee ballots are out. So when we write in our names for the city council, people that we want, when and if I write in John Cubs, how do I know it's not your dad? Or is that, and do I,
He's the only John Cup's running, and he's a junior.
I guess I can field this without treading on any election laws.
I just, you know, because I know your dad,
Right.
John Cubs, right?
Yeah,
And
our middle initials are different.
Right, I've had the question whether it should be John Cox Jr. You guys are not senior and junior.
Correct.
So that is your initial?
No.
Oh.
No, and I think it's the way it's wrote on the ballot or whatever, because it's me running, not dad, so to speak. I don't think it matters one way or the other.
You're the only one registered to be a write-in.
I was gonna say, you have to be a registered write-in in order
How does
for,
the absentee voter know that right now?
Nick,
They would have to
Nick, you
call.
wanna handle this in general? Yeah, just.
They would have to call. I am not allowed by state law to inform people that these are the registered voters unless I'm specifically asked, registered candidates rather. So if somebody were to call me and say, who do I vote for? Until that person asks me, who are the registered write-in candidates, then I can inform them, here's who I have as of today. And I would say John Cleveland Cops, I believe that you're the C versus John L. So
I write just John Cups, not John C. Cups.
yes, and the way I have leeway, it's about intent. So if you wrote John Cups or Johnny, then I would interpret it as John Cups, that is here on my list of actually legally registered write-in candidates. Where John Senior is not in this list, so he would not. So if somebody wrote John Cup Senior, that would be one I would probably call the state to ask about. Because the intent was for John's father, and in reality, John's father is not running, just for an example.
There's mud.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's the state's fault, not ours.
Can the newspaper run who the write-in candidates are?
I'm sure they will. They normally do.
Absolutely.
There's other avenues.
There are other avenues, but the one maybe word of caution. If an outside affiliate, newspaper, chamber, whoever might say, okay, here's a list of registered write-in candidates. Has to be very clear that this time frame goes until October 22nd. So you could put out a list of the people that we have today, and it could change by Friday.
Okay.
So that's something that would have to be constantly updated and checked on.
And we can check with you to find out
Yes.
who they are.
As long as you specifically ask me who the write-in candidates are.
I use the exact correct language.
Yes.
Okay. Can do that.
Okay. Number next is, I didn't see on the agenda, the water main project. Is that on the agenda?
It's in the city manager's report. Is there a question you have about it?
My question is, when is it gonna be done?
Well, we're hoping that this week. So they had trouble boring. They had to call in another contractors or board. They hit a lot of rock, so it took them a lot longer than expected.
Okay.
So water testing is happening right now.
Okay,
So hopefully, I'm guessing Thursday it should be done, but I mean, the way it went the last 2 weeks, I don't want to make a promise.
okay, why do we have to have the traffic on Summit Street?
Because we can't redirect it anywhere else, and that was the shortest route. So we can't redirect, for example, we can't take it to Lake Street and then take it to M119. You can't redirect into the county road. You have to redirect back down to a city road. Yeah. Well, the alternative, if you redirect it to the county road, what the county has done in previous, and I know this is a question we've received a lot, is the county says, okay, here's how you plan 2-3 weeks. Here's how much it's going to cost us to resurface the road from all the truck traffic that's coming off of M119. So here's how much money you're going to owe us to redirect traffic onto our county roads. So it wouldn't make financial sense to do that. And they've done it to different projects. So that's the reasoning for why we don't direct it at the county road. We don't take that into account.
It got directed onto
Yeah, on the street.
with no sidewalks and we have nowhere to go, plus the sidewalks down on 119 now have been tore up and not.
Yeah.
Means that can be done.
The sidewalk project?
Yeah, on 119.
Tomorrow, Wednesday.
It's a contract.
Oh, good. Oh, can I write that down?
As long as it doesn't rain. Hopefully we don't follow it by Friday.
That's the other thing.
Yeah, I wish I did walk down there today because 2/3 of it got done.
The part where we get redirected back down to 119. So, okay, number next, guess, Mr. Grimm isn't here, but I had asked about someone on our side street had emptied their basement stuff into the front yard. And it's been like that all summer, and I'm wondering why you can empty your basement stuff in your yard, and that's not a code violation, but if my grass is too long, that is a code violation.
So I think I talked to Jeff about this, and he said there were a few things that are on that property that would be a code violation. He signed them a letter. But there are certain things that you're allowed to put on your, if it doesn't look nice, that's not how we regulate in our zoning code. There's certain things that you can't store on your property outside. But
Like,
well,
tell you what I want.
like some of those appliances,
Yeah.
but other things,
That's
we can't
fine, I
regulate.
just want to get rid of the appliance.
Appliances, he said he's gonna send out a letter. Yeah, so.
That was it, I'm sorry. Which I didn't.
Thank you very much.
Dan Mulder, 372 West Summit. My question is about Shea Park, and you probably all know about this already, but I just heard the Historic Society bought Shea Locomotive and they're refurbishing it, and their intent is to put it at Shea Park, and I'm just wondering if the public's gonna have a chance to input on that.
So we'll bring that to the council when, just like we did with the vote, if the Historical Society makes a request to us officially, we'll bring it to the council and there'll be public meetings about it. Did that answer your question?
Input is just if people happen to be at the meeting.
Well, it'll be on an agenda. I mean, I believe last time the process we did is we went to the planning commission, and I think then we went here. So they'll have plenty of opportunity to come.
I guess for my part, I just don't know if we want like a Disney World, Shea World type thing there.
Well, that request hasn't come to us yet, so.
Anyone else for public comment? Yes, ma'am?
Jeannie Shaver, 417 East Bluff, and I own a building at 175 East Lane. We are talking with the people who own Good Trucking about moving the food truck into the parking lot that I own behind the building, and tucking that in. So is that on the?
That is on the agenda.
Well, I didn't get an agenda, so I apologize.
All right.
I was looking over his shoulder, but he didn't.
It's item C, it's up here on the screen.
Okay,
Yeah. Anyone else?
take it back then.
All right. Anyone on the computer?
We do have 2 people on the computer, but I don't see any
Comments?
comments.
Excellent. Move on to the consent agenda. See anything anyone would be opposed to?
I'm good with it.
Did the bills get fixed from Weston?
Yep.
Make a motion to approve?
Second that?
Okay, I'll do a quick roll call. John Leo,
Yes.
John Cobb's,
Yes.
Matt McGura,
Yes.
Al Dyke,
Yes.
and Nancy Rondell.
Yes.
Motion carried.
The manager section.
Yes, so today we have Larry Dyer from Grow Solar Little Traverse, just to provide information to council about a solar program that entities in northern Michigan are working on. So I'll pass it on to Larry, so he can just give them an overview of what's Grow Solar is about.
Great, thanks for the opportunity. Just wanted to bring this to your attention. It's a bulk solar purchase effort that's being launched in this area. It's something that might be of interest to some Harbor Springs city residents, and it might help the city in moving forward with its 30% renewable energy by 2025. So again, my name is Larry Dyer. I'm a resident of Petoskey. I'm representing Michigan Interfaith Power and Light on this project, and we're collaborating with the Groundwork Center for Resilient Communities and the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, which is based in Custer, Wisconsin. And so MREA, Midwest Renewable Energy Association, or MREA, has done 42 of these bulk group buy solar efforts since 2017. This is the first one in Michigan. Most of them are on the other side of the lake, but so we're trying to launch this one here. The idea is to try to pool the resources of consumers so that they can get some bulk discounts on the equipment, and in turn it can save the installers a little bit of effort, some of their soft costs, some of the public education and outreach the non-billable hours. We take care of some of that with our education and by gathering some of the customers together. So the ideal thing is to make it attractive to both the installers and to the customers. And the way we'll go about this, we're doing some educational programming right now to try to gauge the interest in the area. It's open to anyone within the boundaries you put under a 30-mile driving distance from Petoskey City Hall, just to put some kind of boundary on it. The idea is that if we're asking the installers to give us a bulk discount, we don't want them driving all the way to the north end of Emmett County. We want to include as much as we can, but that makes it open to residents of Petoskey, Harbor Springs, and large parts of Emmett County and some parts of Charlotte County as well. So we're trying to reach an audience. We're targeting primarily residential homeowners, but it's open to any property owner. So that could include some small businesses. We've had a couple of churches inquire, potentially even the North Central Michigan College. We're not, it would be open to almost any person that is interested, that's a property owner within that driving range of City Hall. So the way it'll work is once we have a sense of whether there's enough of a market to attract an installer, we'll put out a request for proposals to installers. We'll be asking the installer to give us a base price that's lower than what they would charge an individual customer. So by pooling maybe 10 or 12 customers together to get kind of in the ballpark of probably 50 kilowatt hours or 50 kilowatts of capacity installed, we'd ask them to give us a base rate that's lower than what they would charge an individual customer. On top of that, there will be costs that are tailored to each individual site. There's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all package for solar. So we can get a base rate on some of the equipment, some of the panels, the inverters and those sorts of things, but then there will be a lot of things that will make it tailored specifically to each site that they can't give us a bulk discount on. Then beyond that, we're asking that if we can get enough customers involved, they'll give us some thresholds where they'll get some further price reductions. So probably is going to take 10 or 12 customers to initially get that reduced rate. But if we can get up to 20 customers, maybe get a reduction on that. If we can get up to 25 customers, maybe a further reduction. And so the customers would each individually be signing up with the installer. The installer would do the site inspection, site assessment, the design of the system. They'll do all the permitting and the installation. And the customer, when they've signed, will pay that initial reduced rate plus any of their additional costs, the add-ons that they call them. And then at the end of the project, when all the installations are done, if we've hit some of those higher thresholds of customers, then they'll get a further price reduction from the installer. So that's the way it's designed to work. Not really asking anything of council. I just wanted to bring this to your attention. It's something that's happening in the area that some of the residential and small business customers might be interested in. And depending on how you do the calculations on your 30% renewable by 2025, at least any of the net meter electricity that goes back to the grid could count towards that. And depending on how you do the calculations, any of the energy that customers have produced for themselves, that, you know, if they use it before you see it on any meter, then, you know, that could potentially be a part of your 30% by 2025 goal as well. So I don't know if you have any questions about how that might work or what the project's about. Sure. So
That's great.
yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, I worked on something like this in New Hampshire back in 2014. It worked out pretty well. So,
How is it that you're getting how are you marketing it? How are you reaching the individuals who might want to participate?
We've been doing some outreach programs. Oh, I should say that our outreach is, some of our outreach is being funded by a grant from the Petoskey Harbor Springs Area Community Foundation. So that's helped us do some of the outreach. And so we've done a few presentations. A couple have been Zoom. There's been two of them in person. One at Covey Scenic Farm, and another one at the Carnegie Building in Petoskey. We don't have any more scheduled right now, but we're in conversations with some members of the faith community to target that community. So we might be having one at First Presbyterian somewhere later in October, and probably another Zoom. So a couple more should be scheduled. There's a website. I think you got some information, and I handed out another pamphlet. Go to littletravers.growsolar.org, and that website will show what any new public outreach meetings that we schedule, and it'll give you a place where you can sign up for more information, and that'll explain a little bit more how it all works. And there should also be I think within the next day, there should be a link to a recording of one of the Zoom sessions that we did available on the site as well. It gives them the recording session, the in-person sessions, we call them solar power hours. They give a little bit of background, kind of the information that I just gave you, with maybe a little more detail on some of the pricing and that sort of thing. It also gives more of a background just about how solar energy works and what some of the considerations are for each individual homeowner that might be, or business owners that might be looking at installing solar.
and I also believe it'll be in the newspaper.
And the target time frame for installation?
We're probably looking at 2022 at this point. I mean, we might be able to get a few of them started by the end of this year, but I think at this point we're looking at 2022. It will be a limited time frame. We don't want to, we need to limit the scope of it in time, so it'll be a limited offering, and that helps people be decisive still. So
Thank you.
good, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, there's a question.
I just had, what was the deadline for 2025? What did 2025 have to do with, I thought?
The city has a 30% renewable energy goal by year 2025. So to buy 30% of our energy from renewable.
Okay, so that's just the city
That's the
power.
Well, that's the city electric utility, yeah.
Right. Opposed to like Great Lakes Energy
Correct.
or any of those other outlets.
Yeah.
Anything else? Goodbye.
Great. We have Marley Moose to give an update about a couple of items that the DEA has been discussing. And I'll get to those slides right here, Margo.
So in spring of 2021, we can move on to the next slide. City Council asked the DDA to take a look at providing a solution to the
the situation with the unsightly tree bases on the 3 blocks of Main Street in downtown Harbor Springs. So the solution that we came up with was that the DDA worked with the Harbor Springs High School National Honor Society to plant and maintain the flowers on Main Street throughout the summer of 2021. This was done through a $2,000 donation to the Harbor Springs High School National Honor Society, cost of flowers over the summer of $938.31, and then other costs of $312.56. So the overall, the entire project cost $3,250.87. The next slide shows what we were looking at before some of the situations we were dealing with on Main Street with the really unsightly, weedy, and just not very attractive. We had a very successful planting day in May, and the National Honor Society came out and volunteers from the DDA came out, and they did a great job. And I think the kids really did a nice job planting and maintaining, sweeping and weeding throughout the summer. By midsummer, or early summer is kind of where we were at, we started noticing there were some issues with some of the tree bases. Some of the trees were so large, we couldn't plant very much. And so then after the 4th of July, we did another assessment and looked at the tree gardens, and we could see that there was trampling, there was a lack of water, and there was just not, a lot of the plants were not thriving due to the overgrowth of the trees that were there. And so you can see some in the picture, some of them are doing great by 4th of July, and some of them were not doing so well. So in July, the DDA determined that in order to salvage this project, we needed to plant more flowers. We located an external watering source, and volunteers held another planting day, and a summer watering schedule was created. We asked business owners to add additional water along with a watering cart that Lucas provided for us, and through various volunteer members. We went up and down the streets.
Are they all that age?
Yes. And
Lucas is hiring really young people.
it's what you get when you pay for free. And created a schedule and watered throughout. So the Main Street tree gardens received a lot of praise through the summer, though there was some criticism as far as the hardiness with petunias. We do think they added a positive addition to the city and gave them more inviting to the downtown. That said, the gardens also required much more maintenance than was initially expected. Even with the NHS weeding and sweeping weekly, the DDA needed to come out, add more flowers, continue weeding, and it just ended up being a larger project. Some of the tree gardens still did not ever flourish, and this was due to the lack of water, either from faulty irrigation or overly large trees, or because of the overgrown roots. We think that if the city chooses to continue with this project in the future years, and in order for the project to be successful, these issues will need to be addressed. So, this is where we kind of ended at the end of summer. And we have, obviously, you can see it's kind of a really wide range of how well some of the tree gardens, whether they thrived or did not thrive. So our recommendation on this project is to continue, if we continue with this project in the future, we do think that it's a good idea to work with an outside organization like the National Honor Society to plant and maintain. They are going to be helping us remove the petunias in the coming weeks. We do think that in order for these gardens to be successful, we really do need to remove and replace overly large trees and some of the trees that are dying on Main Street. We need to modify the irrigation system to provide either more water to the gardens or extend the watering time, which in the end, Lucas did end up doing that for us. But I think some of the trees were absorbing just a lot more of the water than the flowers were. We need to increase the number of flowers planted in the spring plan for a midsummer planting and cleanup day. And then there are a couple existing tree pits that no longer will have trees in them. And so we are recommending that those would be filled with concrete, filled in the sidewalk. Lucas and I have spoken, and based on tree survival in those locations and then what the business merchants would like, one of them's in a really high delivery area, it would just be better to just concrete that part of the sidewalk over. As we move forward, we would definitely like to look at standardizing the tree pits along the main street, maybe removing some of the trees, because we do have quite a few along those 3 blocks, and continue to pursue a long-term plan for that project. But that's where we are on that. The other project that we spent some time looking into was the Merchants Walkway this summer. And I requested bids from several different companies. Most were too busy through the summer to give me a good idea as far as what was going to cost to repair the fountain, the walkway, and that area. One of the things that we were recommending that we were going to pursue was to offer grants to the the businesses that backed up to that Merchants area walkway, giving them a grant to clean up their back alley area. And then Dana Mulder, who's on our board, was offering to develop a cohesive landscape plan for the walkway. It just didn't seem to get a lot of traction. And after our last DDA board meeting, the DDA has decided to no longer pursue that project. The way they felt was that area is just not being utilized enough. And it seems that the property owners don't really want to put their effort into cleaning up that area. And if people aren't going to be back there, it seems like we don't necessarily want to invest money into that if that's just not going to get cleaned up and people aren't going to get behind that project. There are some necessary repairs that are going to need to happen in that area. At this point, I think the DDA is going to just kind of hand that off to the city and say, because there are some safety walkway issues and then some areas with the fountain unless just even for safety purposes that need to be addressed. So kind of where we're at right now, I think the DDA has exhaustively looked into proposed projects that we had on our original TIF plan. Implemented the wayfinding signs, did an investigation into the 3rd Street parking lot as a paid lot, and then also developed a long-term plan for the Main Street tree-based gardens. And then in the interim, implemented a short-term plan for those. We've had several successful ice fests over the last couple of years, and we're planning to hold that through 2022. Our TIF plan is set to expire in 2022. So as we move forward this year, we're going to be focusing most of our attention on renewing that plan before and submitting that by the fall of 2022, looking at some of the new projects that we want to take on and re-examine some of the past potential projects, like the Main Street streetscape project or downtown lighting to enhance the downtown. But that's where we're at, I guess, moving forward from this year. And so if you have any questions, and particularly about where you want to, the DDA would like some feedback as to where you want to go at some point particularly with the flower gardens, to see whether we pursue that more or we just let it go or go in a different direction.
The flower garden being the tree base.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I thought it really made the downtown look a lot better than it has in years. So I'd like to continue it. And I'm also a fan of pulling out those trees that are too big.
Mm-hmm.
They've certainly gone beyond the downtown streetscape scale.
Larger than street trees.
Yes.
You mentioned some trees that are dying.
Yeah, yes.
Is the tree board involved in looking at a plan
It is, we did refer it to Victor, and then I believe where this, you go ahead.
Yeah, Ben and Lucas are looking, I mean, none of those trees are dead yet, but they're on their way out, so Lucas said there might be a couple that we get rid of, and we're gonna get a plan together on which trees, I think that was what we were last at, which trees want to keep and which ones are gonna go before we do any of that work.
I haven't been to a recent DDA meeting, I just haven't been able to, or a tree board meeting, but both groups, I think, talked about this topic before. And you learn as you go, trees in a cityscape have a limited life. And if not managed properly, they tend to overgrow. So we do need a plan. I mean, if we're gonna take out some trees, are they gonna get replaced or paved over? If they're gonna get replaced, where's the plan for what kind of tree and how long are they gonna last? What's the replacement?
Tree board has recommended.
So as long as that's in
trees
process,
throughout.
I agree with that. I mean, it really dressed up downtown. If there were some problems like irrigation that needs to get fixed, well, it should get fixed. If there are trees that should be taken out or spaced differently or over that, the end result could be very attractive. But without a long-term plan, we'll end up back where we are again. Right? Good effort this, learning effort this summer, let's
We
apply
had
it.
a lot.
Yeah.
We didn't expect we'd have to water.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right, so item 3C is a request for a food truck on private property during the month of October. So it's Good Trucking food truck. Right now they have a license for one of our public spots, which we allow, which is on Bay Street. They've been there, I think, through September and a little bit before that. And right now, in our zoning code, we don't have anything that permits or prohibits food trucks on private property. So the way we've generally interpreted our zoning code is if it doesn't expressly allow it, we say it's not allowed. And that's just how we generally have interpreted our zoning code. We have done things in the past on private property for small events where we have approved like a day or two long kind of things like, or month-long campaigns, for example, like selling raffle tickets, but that was for a nonprofit, for example, like the Salvation Army. And small things like that. We've never had this request and staff has never fully analyzed locating what the effects would be of locating a food truck on private property. So they made this request, a Good Trucking food truck. I believe they couldn't be here tonight, but I believe the owners of the lot where they're recommending to put the food truck at Truffalo's, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
It's a tree.
Yeah. That's between Cushion's and Outfitter. They're on Main Street, and on the back, there's a parking lot. And I really look at it, there's really three options we have. Council can say, no, we don't want to do this. Or they can say, it might be a good idea, but we need more staff analysis of, what the effects could be. And usually something like this would go to the planning commission first, develop some sort of ordinance, and then come back to the council for approval. Or the third is to, as they're making a request for October, is to do some sort of temporary approval to see how it goes just for the month of October. And then let's see what we learn from there. So if the last route is the route we wanted to go, I kind of outlined what we would need from staff, and that would be a site plan. We have to address issues, things like noise, pedestrian circulation, neighbors' concerns. There's a bunch of them, and you've received probably 3 letters, public comments that either were in opposition or wanted some further research or questions asked and answered about locating a food truck in the private property, and specifically this location. So those are, in my mind, those are the 3 kind of routes we can go. I think it's most prudent to have an analysis done and spend some time thinking about whether we should allow them on private property, and if so, how. But there's also an advantage to doing a test and seeing what really goes wrong and what works well. But for now, I'll just leave it over to Gina. Are you here representing?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Lydia is not feeling well, so they stayed home just to be safe.
Okay.
So that, the property behind Truffalo's is my parking lot. And they will be tapping into electric, so there will not be generator noise. They're there from around 10-ish to 3-ish. They use the New York for their commissary, so prep is down there. Then they drive off, they drive on, they drive off. Josh and I had talked about it in, a little bit, and I know that there were some concerns about people being back there, coming from a college town. I know about people being around, so but typically this is a place where they're gonna go and they're gonna pick it up and go. We've been wanting to get more business on Third Street. I think that will do that. I don't think the restaurants will have a problem because they can't right now serve the people that they have because they can't get enough staff. So the food is high quality. Olivia and her fiance are very high energy. They'll be there in the summer only. And I think that it'd just be a wonderful thing to have behind there. I've offered up, I have a garden area with tables and chairs. I've offered that up as well, as long as they clean up afterwards when they get ready to go. Just kind of address, I think we can look at things and say, oh, there could be this problem, there could be this problem. There's always a problem. The analogy is that I'm going through cancer treatment. So if I looked at every side effect possible of the cancer treatment that I'm going through, I would never do it. I just say no and die. But you have to think, we'll address that. We'll address that. We'll address that. So that's my opinion, is that we take a stab at it in October. And again, I spoke with Josh, I spoke with the folks in the White House, Jamie, who said, I don't see any problem. And I'm not sure who else would be impacted by that. So the 3 letters, you received 3 letters from people.
Yeah, I've received a call from a neighbor that's right there, so in the vicinity on Third Street, it's Third and Spring.
Okay. Well, again, I don't see a noise factor because over here when they're across from Irish, they're using a generator. So yeah, there is a noise thing, but they'll be tapping into electric. So I think the noise will be minimal. Smell, Tom's Mom's Cookies is there. So pretty much we smell Tom's Mom's Cookies. But I can't really see, again, will we have to address some things down the line? Absolutely. We will have to address that. Can we address it? Absolutely. And then if it looks like, no, it doesn't work in October, then we abandon that and say, well, that didn't work, but I think it can. So it just seems easier than let's analyze it and think of every single thing that could go wrong. And then, not let it happen. And then you say, well, let's try it next summer. I think it's easier to try it in October when we don't have that many people coming in. Let's see what happens. Questions?
I'd like
Yes.
to speak. I'm Robert Lewicki. I own that White House with my
Okay.
wife Jamie.
Okay,
When you spoke to her, I believe you were asked to speak to me at that time.
I tried,
I was not home.
Okay.
My wife has had a brain tumor as well as seizures, and she thought you were talking about down by Johans and not behind us. We are approximately 25 feet from where you want to put this truck, which would be, I look out my kitchen window, that's what I want to see. I did a quick measurement with some approximately 25 feet wide there. I see usually 2-3 cars parked nose to nose in that spot.
Yeah, you won't have that anymore, but.
Yes, but in a way, so the trailer or the truck, whatever this is, will be parked. I would see the backside of that, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm concerned about the smells, the noise and that type of thing. It's so busy around there in the summer. And I believe there
Can
was
you
some,
address the council? Yeah, it's easier, yeah, that way
Okay.
they can ask.
I believe there was some neighbors that I contacted that wrote you some letters as far as the input goes, as far as what their thoughts were on that. So, so basically, we're concerned about the foot traffic that's so busy in the summer. Sometimes it's hard to even get out of the driveway. I brought some neighbors here that I had spoke to. They may want to have some input into that as well as what their thoughts are with the food truck. Then I have some additional questions.
I think that means me. I'm Cheryl McCleary. I know some of you guys. I'm the owner of Tom's Fun's Cookies. And the property that I have an easement on the property that is next to the property that this woman would like to use as a food truck space. And being a former planning commission member, I kept saying, why isn't it going to planning commission? Well, now I understand that is something that is being considered. So I think that's a good idea. And I also think, I'm not against food trucks. I love them. In fact, I think they're a great idea. I do think, however, that October isn't a good month to try. It's a good month to see if their truck works. It's a good month to see if they get some business, but it is not at all representative of what happens in July and August on that corner right there. It's all my deliveries come next to that, what will be that truck. All of my big deliveries, Gordon's, Cisco, all of that stuff comes there. So I see a problem with congestion. You know, ever since I've owned the property there, we have had people cutting through using Bob's driveway and my driveway, which is the one that goes onto Spring Street, as a cut through for that corner. Lots of people want to use that driveway as a temporary parking space for Tom's Moms, for one thing, which we hardly discourage. I don't know if you've noticed, but we put, you know, private driveway signs. It helps a little. So I just think it's going to add to the congestion there. So I have that concern. My delivery trucks, people milling, a lot of people around, and where if you've only got 15 or 20 feet or 25 feet, they're going to spill into Josh's parking lot, I think, while they're waiting in line to go to get their food. So I just have some logistical concerns about where it is. Was this truck on Bay Street for a while, but right down at the end of Spring Street?
It was on Bay Street, right at Shea Park, yeah.
Right at Shea Park?
Yeah.
Because I understood there was one closer to Spring and Bay.
Yeah, it was a couple of years
Yeah,
ago.
not reasonable.
Oh, it was a couple of years ago. And then that got moved because people were concerned about.
There was a few
Smells
different
or something.
locations, you know, in the past, I think 4 or 5 years, council had looked at 2 or 3 different public locations. And then finally, 3 years ago, we settled on this ordinance with Bay Street by Shea Park as the location for food trucks. So yeah, it's moved around a few times.
Yeah, well, I understand it's good food, and I understand, I think it's a great thing to have. I just think this is the wrong place for it, for the reasons that I've cited.
And I would just have to say that, I mean, I walk up and down the street a lot, and we get the smells from the New York, from Pearson's, from the paper station, from, I don't know if that really is something that, it's coming from every restaurant that we have.
And they're good smells.
Yeah, they are, Councnil especially is good. You know, Johans, no, they have everything delivered there, but I think that, I don't think that that's, to me, would be like, that's a terrible thing. You know, Josh and I talked a little bit about people milling around, and it's gonna be mostly carry out, takeaway kind of a thing. If we address that, so, you know, I think you address that issue by put up little standards where people have to be in line here, and then they can go into my garden and wait to be called. So, you know, I offered that up. And there's plenty of room in there for people. I've got tables and chairs in there, so there's plenty of room in there for people to stand and wait to get their food. So if you look at congestion, we have that one paper station is an hour backed up. And the people are out on the sidewalk and you can't get by, or they're over at Kilwins and you can't get by. So I think that, you know, to me, I look at that as, that's great, because Harbor Springs is flourishing. So we've got a lot of people coming to Harbor Springs. So to me, that is, I don't see, if it's on my property, how that impacts deliveries.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
If I remember correctly from my planning commission days, would this be considered square footage for a business added to the property, and would she need to have parking spaces?
Well, we don't know what that,
We don't know.
we don't know, that's why we would need an analysis, because we don't know, we don't have a mechanism how to treat food trucks, especially because food trucks don't
But if
typically
it's
have
in one
cars.
place and it's there for 6 months, it would seem quasi-permanent to
It
me.
doesn't stay there, it's movable.
Well, I just say, we don't know the answer to that question, if that would count as square footage required for a parking space, because we can make the ordinance say whatever we want to say when we draft an ordinance, so I don't know what it.
But is there an existing ordinance?
No, that was what I mentioned at council earlier, there is no ordinance that allows or prohibits food trucks on private property. That's why it's requested.
So, I mean, I don't want to be a stickler about this, but I'm going to bring up something that, what if I could desperately use more storage space in the summer for my ingredients? What if I rented a pod and put it in my driveway? Would there be an ordinance against that?
Well, you have to check with the zoning administrator. I don't know, for example, if there would be
But
a,
it would be it's the same thing, is what I'm saying, a temporary space that would be considered commercial, that could be movable. I'm just saying, you're kind of opening up a whole thing with that. And again, I'm not against your food truck at all. I just think it could be a better place.
But I'm just gonna say that if I go back to the time when years ago, when I sat in front of the planning commission because I wanted to add a porch and a mudroom onto my house on 3rd Church Street, where I used to live, there was the footprint of the land, of course, to the footprint of the building had to be, there was a ratio there, which honestly, I don't know if we're following with some of the buildings that I'm seeing, but anything that was movable could be put on your property. And so if I had a movable front porch, I didn't have to ask. So if I have a movable mudroom, I didn't have to ask. That was the ordinance back then. So this comes, it drives in at 10-ish, it leaves at 3-ish. It's movable. So I don't know if that is.
so right now, the way the ordinance is written is that there is no allowance for food trucks on private properties. So the request comes to city staff says no. That's what we essentially said. So that's why it goes to council, because there's a request to do it this month in October. So we can go through all these hypotheticals and about, what happened with my property or the other person's property, but ultimately it comes down to our ordinance doesn't mention food trucks or zoning code. So council has the duty of either saying, let's examine it, let's allow it, or let's not allow it. And that's really what the question is. So I guess, Matt, Mayor, if you want to take any more questions or comments from other people before you guys discuss it.
I have a question. Okay, Josh, perfect segue. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, Josh Baker, my wife and I am the outfitter, which is the western boundary, so about on the east, on the west. Or I guess Cheryl's.
It's Bob's property, but I just have an easement.
Okay. And Jeannie and I talked, and I, like Cheryl, supported the idea. I told everyone I talked to about this, of food trucks downtown. Great. It goes right back to planning commission. I mean, I think that's where this ends up for me, because great, I have 3 spots. I want to put a couple food trucks in too. So suddenly does it become a parking lot of food trucks? And I like the idea, but I said to Jeannie, you got to talk to Bob because he's your neighbor as well as me. So I guess I think it goes right to planning commission. In my mind, I guess I don't see the benefit of zapping one in just to try it, because there's got to be some kind of regulation to it. So yeah, that's
Let the mayor.
We're gonna talk for, I guess we should talk amongst ourselves and then we'll take field more questions if we need to, or ask for more. But anybody have any strong feelings?
I quite like the idea.
Yeah.
And we just had an example of all that we learned by doing it for a while. And here we have an opportunity. We have a resident that's willing to offer up her private property and put a truck there for a month. Okay, granted, it's not the summer, it's not peak, but you're gonna learn a lot by doing it. And I like the idea. Congestion downtown, it's already congested. When it's October and we have people come to look at the leaves, or it's summer and we have a line outside of Tom's Mom's Cookies, whatever, it's gonna be congested. And there are gonna be smells downtown. You got fudge, you got, I think it's a great opportunity to learn something. We should give it a try. If it doesn't work, we say, damn, we shouldn't have done that. And if it turns out really well and it goes, it's an opportunity to provide the planning commission with some information about what might need to be integrated into the code. Why not take advantage?
I kind of follow his sentiment. Well, I think it does have to go, regardless of what it's got to go to planning commission, so we don't open up
Oh, ultimately,
door.
absolutely.
to go down the wrong rabbit hole, so to speak. We already have an ordinance that keeps them here, but there's nothing in place for having residents, so who would have thought that this would pop up? So, but I kind of like John's idea. I mean, October's October. October's just like July around here. So smells are smells.
It's a valid
It doesn't
point.
matter what end of town you're at. I mean, you're gonna have smells. So I think the smell's a non-issue, but traffic, people, we got it all over town. It doesn't matter. So I'm kind of hoping the idea to try it for 30 days, whatever, and then make sure this gets rolled into planning commission so we can, they can say yay, nay, or whatever going forward.
I was excited about the idea when I read about it. But I understood it to be for only October, what they would operate, where they have been operating each summer, and then as the shoulder season fell. The Irish, there's not much going on now. So in that scope, I really like the idea. But I would not mind at all giving it a chance. It's a month. If we go to planning commission, the next planning commission meeting, I think, is the second week.
21st.
Yeah. So we've lost October. And my only complaint about their operation, I like their food, I went there, is the noise of the generator. And if that's not there, then I think that's a pretty fine operation.
I think we should give it a try. I think it's the perfect time to do it in October, actually. We'll learn a lot. Hopefully it'll work, because I think there's some opportunity for a lot for food trucks. I think we need to figure it out. And this is a piece that would help us to figure that out.
I like Josh's idea, putting in 3 in his part.
But we can start with one.
Right.
Josh is back. The Harper's version of the back lot.
I think it's a good, I mean, it's an up and coming thing, you know, it's something people want. There's no doubt about it. People really want it, so I think it's a good chance to try it.
Well, I don't mind the timing of it either, 10 to 3 or whatever it is, so it's.
Yeah.
Their hours are very variable. Right. Okay.
So then what I would do, if it seems like council's pretty much in agreement here, imagine we take a motion for a vote, but take this, have the applicant come back to us, provide some sort of site plan, some details that staff can just check initially to make sure we don't see anything, and then give them approval for 30 days. And then take that information we learn, go to planning commission with potential to create an ordinance.
Where there can be further public discussion, et cetera. Yeah. Well, I would make that motion.
I'll second it.
And I guess I'd like to include that there's no cutting off Tom's Mom's deliveries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I know what issue that could be.
Matt, you did say you were gonna go back to, if anyone had additional questions,
Oh,
or
yeah.
comments before I get.
Additional comments or questions?
I've got one more, I've always got one more. I thought we had some kind of a thing about trucks in town already.
We do.
What is it right now?
It's trucks can only be located on, it's about public property, it's not on private
That was
property.
gonna be because they were a parking space before,
Yeah,
right?
they were in public parking spaces.
Right.
So it's in
So
our
it's
city
okay,
code.
it's okay to be in a public space.
We only have a couple,
We have to say they're
In a designated.
yeah, it doesn't, yeah, we have an ordinance that specifies what public property, what public parking spaces food trucks can be located on.
But basically Bay Street, or is it more?
It's Bay Street, yeah. Right
Oh,
by
it's
Shea-
your specific.
Those 3 spots right in front of Shea Park on Bay Street.
Okay, gotcha.
There used to be different locations several years ago, and we changed those around.
Yeah, because Wally and, well,
Yeah.
anyway, over the Hollywood people a long time ago used to have it. Yeah, okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay, I have a motion and I do have a second. Any other discussion? I'll take a roll call. Nancy Rundell,
Yes.
Al Dyke,
Yes.
John Leo,
Yes.
John Cobbs,
Yes.
and Matt Boogera.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
All right, I guess we'll move on to city manager's report. Kind of gave this update a little bit earlier, when Ms. Backus had asked about the well. Yeah, they had struck a lot of rock when they were doing the boring. They actually had to call in a backup contractor to get a different equipment in to do the boring. They finally were successful with that, I think, on Thursday of last week. So then they had planned to start testing of the water on the weekend. And they said they usually need 3 to 4 days of testing. So I'm hoping in the next couple of days, this project is done and the streets open up again. But I can't make that promise. I said 2 weeks max last time and then it'd be 3 weeks. So.
Please don't promise, because I will guarantee that.
Exactly. The spillway landscaping project is complete, as you've seen outside, and we've received so far several compliments on it. I think they did a good job
Nice
with
job.
stone landscaping there.
Looks great.
As we mentioned earlier, the deadline to file as a write-in candidate is for the November 2 general elections is October 22nd, 4 p.m. So for those that are still interested in being a write-in, you have a couple more weeks. We are painting the Harbor Master, Ford Park, and City Beach bathrooms this fall. And we'll also have to replace the Harbor Master building toilets. Due to several issues there, there's been plumbing issues there, so it's about time we got around to those. The water department, we told you about this earlier in the year. The state is requiring that we inspect a certain percentage of our service lines, our water service lines. It's called PDMI, the Preliminary Distribution Materials Inventory. It's a state requirement we have to do it in the next few years. So we're starting that this fall. So it's just really the guys going out there and making sure that there's nothing bad in our water system service lines going to the houses. And also we will be having, the Parks Department will be hosting a fundraising event at Skate Park this Sunday. It's called Tricks for Ted. It's part of that fundraising effort to build a new skate park. And probably some of you have seen that was a very successful Fall Fest that we had on Saturday. We had a lot of kids, a lot of families show up.
Nice job.
It was fun. I beat the mayor in donut eating contest.
I didn't hear
He
about
says he
that.
won, but
I saw the video.
it was really fun. There was a lot of kids, a lot of activities. The fire truck was there, which was awesome. We had, I believe it was small batch hot dogs. We had a tractor. We had, pumpkin paint.
And whoever was involved in that was
It was, the Parks
Great,
Department,
great
and
deal.
Park Committee.
Great job.
We had volunteers, high school
She did a
volunteers.
great job.
Rachel did a great job, yeah, organizing, but committee
and
and,
if members of the community or committee did a great job on that one.
yeah, a lot of good work being done there. So thanks. That's all I have for updates. We didn't have any board and commissions meetings since the last council meeting. I did have an MML convention in Grand Rapids September 22nd to 24th, which was pretty informative about what communities are doing to adjust to the results of COVID-19, how they're reutilizing outdoor space, how they're enhancing their outdoor spaces for their communities. A lot of emphasis on parks, eating areas, recreation. Also, there's a lot of some of the hot button topics are short-term rentals, housing issues in general, affordability, workforce. Those are some of the bigger issues. And there's always a lot to learn, make a lot of connections there, so it was good. Had a couple MPPA meetings, and Kyle and I attended racial understanding. I don't know what is it really called.
It's like a forum.
A forum. It's a 6-week kind of program to get different members of the community together to talk about racial and ethnic awareness in the community. So we've been attending that. Any questions on other city functions?
How did things go with the church bells?
So we're still talking there. We met with the church, and now we're waiting to get back.
Mr. Sheldon's out of town. As soon as he gets back, I'll be meeting with him, what the church's response was.
So.
I just happened to hear it at 2 o'clock today. I'm like, oh, that's what they're talking about.
It is nice.
So just.
It made a big splash in the Petoskey News Review. We know what it's all about here. Yeah, any other questions?
I'm sorry, vacant planning.
Oh, right, so we have the normal planning commission, the normal terms are gonna expire December 31st of this year. But then we have, so Mary Catherine Hanna was set to expire December 31st, but obviously she got her job in Alpena, so she's not gonna be no longer serving. But then we also have Beth Rahali submitted her resignation because she's not gonna be in town for the next several months, so she won't be able to attend those meetings. So we have an immediate opening for the planning commission. So I do have a couple that have submitted their applications. I would bring those to council at the next council meeting to see if they want to appoint someone, because we'll be missing two.
Send those out early though, so that we can study them.
Yeah, I will.
Exactly.
Absolutely. But the other, so we also have received several applications already for the other boards' terms that are gonna be expiring in December. Probably have about 8 applications already for the boards and commissions, and I've heard back from almost everyone who's up for reappointment, whether or not they want to would like to be reappointed or not. So I plan to bring those back to council in early December for council to make a decision then about who to appoint or reappoint for those boards and commissions. So this one planning commission is just for the one term that's expired now.
To Al's point, though, the information will come out beforehand, so we have
Yep.
time to.
Yep.
Great. That's exciting.
And I believe Councilmember Rondell had asked also for attendance records of the, and right.
I was gonna bring it new business, but I'll say it. I would love to have Victor review the pertinent bylaws about reappointing people or appointing people to committees. I've been reading them because I wasn't familiar with them, and almost every committee is different and what the requirements are. So I think that would be helpful for council to know before we have to make those choices.
Good idea.
So,
And
thanks.
I plan on probably the first meeting after our election, so the first council meeting after November 2 general elections, is doing a public overview of, council and Open Meetings Act and stuff like that in our boards and commissions. So that way, kind of a refresher. I know some of you have been on, a long time. It's easy to kind of get complacent. So it's a good refresher to have maybe just, go 15, 20 minutes, just,
Good idea.
yeah, just re-examine everything. Yeah.
No, good idea.
Good. Any rural business that we haven't covered?
I have none.
That's it. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
So.
Nice day. Yeah, I remember, for some reason I thought you did it.
But we don't use a lot now.